Durham into the investigations surrounding the origins of the Russian probe. And that means Comey, McCabe, the whole gang, anybody else in the IC, intelligence community, and the White House at the time. And they won't be able to get rid of Durham. If they do, there will be, of course, an enormous and immediate blowback that will have political damage to the president-elect. I don't think he'll do that. Nevertheless, every nominee of the president-elect to the Department of Justice will be asked, I'm sure, under oath at their confirmation to both cooperate with and certainly not interfere with the special counsel Durham as he investigates the origins of the Russia hoax. That was a big win yesterday. The United Kingdom approved the Pfizer vaccine. They'll approve the Moderna vaccine. They will approve the AstraZeneca vaccine. There's a great story in the Telegraph about how they're going to roll it out, and they already have their tier system. The United States making this a lot more dramatic than it has to be. They're going to start in the elderly homes. Then they're going to recommend people in groups over 75, and then they're going to drop down 10 years. Group number 1, older adults in care homes and home care workers. 2, all those who are over 80. 3, all those who are over 75. 4, all those who are over 70. 5, all those over 65. 6, all those over 18 to 65. Wait a minute. Time out. I'm 64. Don't you be doing that stuff. All of a sudden, you don't go from 65 to 18. I'm willing to wait my turn in line, but this is just an easy reverse order thing. They get complicated. All those 18 to 65 in an at-risk group, all those 60 and over, all those 55 and over, all those 50 and over. Don't be giving the free pass to everyone who comes in and says I'm at risk. I actually think there's going to be plenty of vaccine to go around. But that's why the UK did it in one day. What I'm pointing out to you is all this hand-wringing that's been going on for a week at the CDC. This is not rocket science. Roll it out, open up the centers, get it going. That is followed by news that in Great Britain, they had a vote last night on whether or not the tier system, tier 1, 2, and 3, which they use in the United Kingdom, would be acceptable to the Conservative majority. Now, remember, Boris Johnson leads a huge majority. And, of course, he survived it easily because the Labour Party abstained. And he had 55 members say, I don't like what you're doing out of, 340 or something like that, 330. It was not a serious challenge to Boris, not a serious challenge at all. And therefore, the majority in conservative Great Britain and the majority in the United Kingdom, in Israel, will continue to lead the West in its defense against Iran, because in the Biden interview, he says he wants to go back into the Iran deal. Now, this is a nightmare. We tried to tell you it was going to be a nightmare. It's going to happen. He's going to do it, but there's nothing we can do about it except Joe Biden said one good thing to Thomas Friedman, which I wanted you to hear. One really good thing. He said about Mitch McConnell, the President-elect Biden, he knows me, McConnell. I know him, McConnell. I don't ask him to embarrass himself to make a deal, President-elect Biden said to Tom Friedman. And that sounds like a very good start. The Senate Majority Leader will know exactly what Republicans want, which is an increase in top-line defense spending. They will want to make sure that we don't have another hollowing out of the Pentagon as happened under President Obama. That will be number one. They'll want a participation in the judicial selection so we don't have crazy left-wingers going onto the bench anywhere. They'll want to get some of the district court judges who've been blockaded, like Rick Richmond, in California. He's emblematic of many, appointed in the first wave of Biden judges to the district courts that have been blockaded by blue state senators with blue slips. They're going to want a lot of things. And Mitch is going to get a lot of them. And we're very lucky, but that means winning Georgia. And it seems to me that Joe Biden knows the Republicans are going to win Georgia, that David Perdue is going to win, that Kelly Loeffler is going to win, and that Raphael Warnock is a radical's radical, and that John Ossoff is as lightweight as they come, and he makes AOC look like a conservative. So that is great. Now, let me thank each of you who have donated to Angel Tree. I know that there are legion, thousands of you already. I want to invite the rest of you who have been waiting to get in line today by clicking on the banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. That's how you help the child of a prisoner right here in America. Deanna, for example, grew up without her father in the home because he was in prison. She says she was still able to bond with him through gifts from people like you.
Angel Tree is definitely, like, I wouldn't be who I am without Angel Tree, and especially the Christmas program, because, you know, it helps create a bond with me and my dad. Every year, it gives us something good to talk about, and it makes him happy, which makes me happy. So I think that it's important to kids.
Please go and be generous. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. It's got a Christmas tree with a child on either side of it. I was talking to Commissioner Hodder about it last night. They work so closely with Angel Tree. They're like joined at the hip because they also serve people who emerge from prison. And so please go to Angel Tree. $22 serves a child. $220 serves 10 children. We've done thousands of kids already. I'd love to do tens of thousands of kids. You know you've got $22. Please go to HughHewitt.com. Find the banner at the very top of the website and be generous and come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the
Welcome back, America. Adam is taking the day off, so Ben is picking the Christmas music, and he has picked, I think he's going to play the worst Christmas music. Ben, we're going to stick with sacred songs today. That'll keep you from doing that to me again. Christmas Tree Rock is the worst Christmas song ever. And Ben went to it as though he was, muscle memory went to terrible music. Good morning, everyone. Wednesday, December the 2nd. Let me check on the markets yesterday. It was Giving Tuesday, and they published the number. This is brought to you, by the way, by Birch Gold. All of you are looking for the perfect Christmas present for your families. Buy them an American Eagle, a Canadian Maple Leaf, a Krugerrand. Buy gold for your grandkids, gold for your children. If you can afford it, you buy it for everybody. If you can't afford it, buy it for the family and put it away. Pass it around, let everyone play tiddlywinks with a Krugerrand, and then you'll have some memorable pictures and some savings that will not decline in value over the long range. What you want to do is also move a portion of your retirement into physical precious metals, and you can do that through Birch Gold. Just go to HughGold.com. Pretty easy to remember. My first name, HughGold.com, HughGold.com. Or you can text my name, Hugh, to 474747. And they will send you the information kit on how to preserve a portion of your retirement against ups and downs and crazy periods, and especially against the inflation that I believe has been coming for a while. And I with the Democrats in power and the vaccine rolling out, wow, is there going to be a lot of money washing through the system chasing the same amount of goods? That means inflation. The 10-year Treasury, in fact, jumped yesterday to 0.93. It was at 0.84 yesterday morning. It went to 0.93 yesterday. That's the biggest jump I've seen in the 10-year Treasury in a long time. Oil stayed pretty flat at 44, and gold, which was down to 1770, I said, buy. It's up to 1831 this morning. I think it's going to go back over 2,000, but don't believe me. Just do something you don't have to worry about. You don't have to follow the price every day. Just buy it when you can. The Dow was up 185 points yesterday. NASDAQ was up 156. S&P was up 40. Overseas this morning, England is up 0.5%. Germany is down about the same amount as they absorb news from the United States that on Cyber Monday, $10.8 billion was spent online, a 15% increase. At the end of this quarter, we're going to see a crushing of brick and mortar retail like we've never seen before, and a blossoming of online retail like we've never seen before. 1 out of 5 of those, they say Amazon picks up 20% of every dollar spent online, so they made $2 billion yesterday. Isn't that remarkable? Startup company. I own Amazon. I do not own Target or Costco. They got a bunch of it too. Walmart got a bunch of it, but it's all online. 10.8 billion. When Black Friday disappointed, Cyber Monday was up 15%. Assume Black Friday was down because cyber spending was up. Assume that cyber spending continues. What quarter they're going to have, because the K-shaped recovery is upon us. I mentioned I had Commissioner Potter over last night from the Salvation Army, and I asked him because he sees it on the ground. The number of people who have lost their homes, the number of people who have lost their jobs, the number of people who need food assistance, the number of people with addiction. It's up 155% over last year. People see, and the Salvation Army serves the lost and the least, so he was out there taking care of them. So I'm very much aware that it's not a complete recovery for everyone, but it is good news on the internet shopping scene. There is also a tweet from the President of the United States. We caught Dwayne. Did we catch Ben sleeping? The President of the United States has tweeted. I guess he doesn't know where there is. I've only got 50 days left to say that until he comes back in 2024. Section 230, which is a liability shielding gift from the U.S. to big tech, the only companies in America that have it, corporate welfare, is a serious threat to our national security and election integrity. Our country can never be safe and secure if we allow it to stand. And, he went on to say, therefore, it's the very dangerous and unfair Section 230 is not completely terminated. As part of the National Defense Authorization Act, I'll be forced to unequivocally veto the bill and when it sends that to the very beautiful Resolute desk. Take back America now. Thank you. I'm not a big fan of big tech, but I don't think we ought to remove all of 230. I think what he ought to get is a timeline and a fast track to a vote next year. Everybody wants to amend 230. We don't want to injure the national security. We don't want to injure the tech sector. We want to end censorship, and we want to end control of any portion of the tech industry by the Chinese Communist Party. Amend it, don't end it, and put into the NDAA a fast track to a vote on a single bill that has to be written within 3 months. That can be done. Stay tuned.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are in some sort of social gathering. And he's put out a statement saying, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. We're all gonna do better.
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated.
And he started counting them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe he didn't realize that he had exceeded the number. First, he sends his children to in-person private school while attacking school choice and keeping public schools closed throughout California. Now he attends a private gathering while telling Californians to do otherwise.
Got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach.
Sacramento Bee editorial board, quote, if Newsom can't get his head into the game, perhaps he should make the governor thing a one-term affair and leave the job open for someone with a desire to lead, end of quote. You know, he told you not to have a gathering of more than 10 people. He exceeded that, but spiritually he didn't exceed it. He may have exceeded it physically.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment. Yesterday, the governor of California imposed a month-long 10 p.m. curfew for nearly everybody in the most populous state in America, California. And I just take a lot of comfort in knowing that the Trump administration delivered essentially a vaccine that in normal times would have taken 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
Jennifer in Tustin, California. Hi.
Hi, Dennis. I love the fun on your show. More importantly, the clarity.
Yes. Well, if you like fun and clarity, I'm your man.
Excellent.
I'm your other man. You may be married or have a boyfriend.
Yes.
So I fully.
I am. I have a wonderful man.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm your other man.
Great.
Right.
I've heard you say. My question is, I've heard you say several times of late on the show that you would not take the COVID vaccine, and I feel the same way myself. But I'm wondering, what will I do if the COVID vaccine is mandatory? In the same way that, child vaccines are mandatory in many states. Have you thought about that?
I have thought about it. It's a real dilemma.
Okay.
If they don't allow you to go on an airplane without proof of a vaccine, I would have to weigh not being able to travel and give speeches and do my cruises and I cannot live a life without travel. Yes, exactly.
Welcome back, America. That's Bing. It always means Christmas when I play that, and it always means special counsel when I talk to Andrew C. McCarthy of Fox News and National Review. You can follow him online at Andrew C. McCarthy. Good morning, Andy. How are you?
I'm doing great, Hugh. How are you?
Good. Merry Christmas. It's December. I can say that.
Yes, amen.
Bill Barr gave us a gift yesterday, but it was not much remarked upon. Lost in the coverage of his announcement that there was no fraud, which I think most of us knew there was not fraud sufficient to overturn one state, much less 3 or 4. He announced that John Durham, United States Attorney for Connecticut, had been made a special counsel for purposes of reviewing the Russia hoax. What do you think he did there?
Well, I actually think it's more political than legal protection. He's trying to ratchet up the protection around Durham's investigation to make it more difficult for an incoming Biden administration to remove him. It doesn't really have much legal effect in the sense that even if you just strictly look at the regulations and took them seriously, which the Justice Department never seems to do, Durham isn't qualified to be a special counsel because he's not an attorney from outside the government, which the regs specifically require. Now, the last of the regs, you remember, says that nothing in the regs is enforceable. So basically, the Attorney General can do what he wants, and nobody can take him to court over it. But the incoming Biden administration isn't going to feel bound by this designation because it doesn't comply with the regs. But the important thing is he makes it more difficult for them to remove Durham by highlighting the work that he's doing, and also, I think underscore here that this investigation, for all the things that have been said about it, has not been political. They went out of their way not to do anything in the run-up to the election that could have been seen as influencing it. At an early stage, they said that Biden and Obama were not subject to the investigation, to take that out of the politics of the election. And Attorney General Barr has been very clear that unless you get strong evidence of meat and potatoes crimes, there aren't going to be charges. We may get a narrative report, but those charges have to meet a high standard because he doesn't think the Justice Department should be involved in politics, and he needs to get the politics out of the Justice Department.
I doubt we'll see any report unless there is an indictment. I actually believe that that's what Durham is working under. But let's talk about the predicate under the regs. Let's pretend that the regs apply. And you're right. The biggest problem is it's supposed to be a lawyer from outside of the government, and he isn't. The regs say that you've got to have, when under the circumstances, it would be in the public interest to appoint an outside special counsel to assume responsibility in the matter. So Durham's not outside, but what would those circumstances have been, and why would he have kept it quiet since he made this designation on October 19th? I have a theory. I want to hear yours first.
Well, I think he kept it quiet because he didn't want it to be perceived as an effort in some way to influence the outcome of the election. Plus, I think by making this designation, he as much as concedes to people that this investigation is not close to being over yet, which means it's not going to be wrapped up before the incoming Biden administration comes in. I think if it was going to be wrapped up before then, there would have been no reason to do this now, Hugh. He could have waited until January to do it.
Well, I'm gonna agree and disagree. I think he did it because it does not involve the vice president, and that's why it was not made public. But it does involve serious crime, and so he wanted to put it on the record before the election so that no matter what happened, it was there. And I fell for a head fake in an interview that the Attorney General did with me in April. I asked him specifically about prosecuting before an election. He said that the ban on making that public only applies to a candidate or someone close to him. So I assumed that, he would announce anything else, including Russia. But I didn't ask him that. That's on me. That was a bad interview. I should have followed up.
Can I respectfully disagree and defend you to you?
Go ahead.
I actually think that was a very important piece of information because for those of us who watched this closely, probably as important as any single event in this whole train of facts is the January 5th meeting in the Oval Office where Obama and Biden meet with James Comey, Sally Yates, then the deputy AG, and Susan Rice, who was the national security advisor at the time. And I think they not only discuss the Flynn prosecution, but they talk about what was the main driving force here, which is how do we continue this investigation of Trump once Trump is in power? And they explicitly discuss withholding from the incoming Trump administration information about Russia. And I frankly think that both the removal of Flynn and the removal of Sessions are explained by the fact that the only way you could pull off what they wanted to do, which was continue the investigation after the Trump administration was in power, was to remove people who would have been in the best position to thwart it, which would have been Flynn as National Security Counsel and Sessions as Attorney General. So I think that was actually a very important piece of information because it showed people that something I think I've been saying all along, which is that there are a lot of things that are in the nature of abuse of power that are not necessarily criminal offenses. And that information from the Attorney General showed that they were not looking at least at that transaction as a crime.
I agree. It was a good question, but the follow-up I should have asked, Andy, and it's Journalism 101, is explore every corner in the room. Is there anything else that might not be made public in the interest of election integrity? Then we would have gotten an answer saying, well, that's possible. You know how Bill Barr talked, that could be. Right. I don't answer hypotheticals. That could, anything could happen. You know how he talks. So I would have been upbraided and scooted out of the room, but it would have nevertheless been a good question. So it wasn't made public in order not to impact the election. But I want to probe with you, Andrew. I think that he may very well drop indictments on people before January 20th, and he doesn't want them to go away. And looking down the road, he attached these protections prior to the election so people could not say it's sour grapes. That is my interpretation, because I still look at the fact pattern regarding that FISA warrant, many FISA warrants, and say to myself, someone has got to go to jail other than the low-level lawyer who substituted a name. It's just not what we do in this country.
Well, look, I think that all along it's been a fact that if they can prove a black and white false statement to the FISA court, that will be indicted. And I think that's a large part of the reason this investigation is still going on.
If that happens, and we talk about an indictment before or in the aftermath, let me back up a little bit. Do you expect every nominee to the Department of Justice, from AG, Deputy AG, Associate AG, every Assistant Attorney General, to have to undertake before the committee that they will neither interfere with and indeed will cooperate with Durham in this investigation?
I do expect that they'll be aggressively questioned on that. I don't know if they'll be forced into making a commitment, but certainly the Republicans will press for that. I also think, frankly, it will be in Biden's political advantage to let Durham do his work. Let's remember now, this is a guy who was in this kind of status, a special investigator, under not only George W. Bush, but under the Obama administration and the Clinton administration. And he'll be in a position where he'll be reporting directly to Biden's attorney general. So Biden's going to have a lot of protection here. And the best thing he could do for himself would be to just let Durham play this thing out. But Durham's a very scrupulous, hardworking, professional prosecutor, apolitical. I think if he was a political guy, and Biden should know this, we would have seen stuff by now that smacked of politics, and we haven't, even in this environment. So the best thing he could do would be let Durham finish this thing.
Now, I assume, given the nature of the appointment announcement, and given what you mentioned that it ought to be outside the government, this is not incoming administration people who are the subject of this probe. But if the probe were to expand in its targeting to other people outside of the government, does Barr have to expand that writ to the special counsel before he departs, or can John Durham, as special counsel under a new attorney general, sua sponte, expand it or seek permission to expand it?
He can seek permission to expand it, although I'm sure he has a very wide berth. We'd have to see if there's an underlying memorandum of what the scope of the special counsel appointment is. I assume if Barr purported to do this under the regulations, there may be something along those lines. I also am not so sure, Hugh, that this investigation doesn't affect people in the incoming administration. I think it doesn't affect Biden, and it probably doesn't affect Susan Rice, although who knows. But, the big complication in this investigation, the reason I always thought it was going to be a very difficult one to do, is the involvement of foreign intelligence services and our own intelligence service. And I don't know who Biden is planning to bring in, if he's planning to bring in, Brennan and that whole crowd again. But I don't think those guys are outside the ambit of the investigation. To be clear, I'm not saying I think they're going to be indicted, but I think they're certainly implicated in what went on here.
Well, and I agree that there are a lot of people involved in this that we don't know whether they'll be indicted. My question about confirmation process, I used to know this when I was in the White House counsel's office. Will the FBI know who is the target of Durham so that they can ask people seeking clearances to enter into the government any questions of interest to the special counsel Durham?
I'd be surprised if they were cut into that. I would be surprised if the people who were doing background investigations were cut into what Durham was doing. On the other hand, I think the White House counsel will probably be. So, that world better than I do, but I think they'll work it out.
You'd hate to see them bring in someone who was in the Durham ambit and then find out afterwards that they were in the scope of the investigation. That would be unfair to the president-elect.
Yeah, but let's not forget. I mean, we're not privy to what Durham has, but I say this, looking down at my shoes humbly, but a number of us have done a lot of work digging into what happened here, and it'd be very hard, I think, for the people that you and I are talking about in this ambit to get through a confirmation hearing.
Okay. Next question before the break, I hope you can stay with me, Andy, is do you expect Durham to set up a staffing monster like Mueller and the fellow from Chicago, Fitzgerald, did? Because those are the previous special counsels. And by the way, Fitzgerald was the United States attorney. I want to ask you after the break why he could be a special counsel. He wasn't outside of the government, and Durham can't be. That's for next segment. But do you expect John Durham to get a building and 17 lawyers and 40 FBI agents, et cetera, like Mueller?
I expect that he would have what he has now. I wouldn't think he's not an empire builder, so I wouldn't expect to see that. Now, there's a whole nother investigation that's like the elephant in the room that we're not talking about, which is the Biden investigation, which was the information about was suppressed in the run-up to the election.
That's part two. That's part two. After the break, I want to know if going out the door, the special counsel, having been confirmed with serious pledges not to have interference, gets a writ to go into the Biden investigation from Bill Barr. I'm going to ask Andy to play hot stove, not football. He's a Jets fan. He doesn't know anything about that. We're going to talk about hot stove special counsels when we come back, America. Stay tuned to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Appreciate it. Chris is in San Antonio, Texas. Chris, you're on the Larry Elder Show.
Oh, wow. What an honor to speak with the great Eldersky. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Chris.
I guess my question is, can you imagine if this goes to the courts and then it goes to Congress and then it goes for President Trump like we all know it should?
Chris, mass suicide. Mass suicide.
This whole cities are going to be burning to the ground.
Their ears would explode. I mean, it would be catastrophic for the left if Donald Trump were awarded the election. You think we feel that the election was fraudulent? What do you think they're going to feel? They're going to go absolutely bonkers. They believe that the Russians not only interfered, but 78% of them believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election, even though our intelligence committee has never reached that conclusion. So they're going to go absolutely bonkers. Remember what Hillary advised Joe Biden?
So we've got to have a massive legal operation, and I know the Biden campaign is working on that. We have to have poll workers, and I urge people who are able to be a poll worker. We have to have our own teams of people to counter the force of intimidation that the Republicans and Trump are going to put outside polling places. This is a big organizational challenge, but at least we know more about what they're going to do. And, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
They would go absolutely ballistic.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway, talking with Andrew C. McCarthy. He of Fox News fame. He's the author of many fine books. He writes at National Review. You can read everything Andy writes if you follow him on Twitter, Andrew C. McCarthy. Okay, Andy, two more questions about the special counsel announcement yesterday for John Durham. The first, as you mentioned, Section 600.3 of the regulations governing special counsel specifically state that that a special counsel shall be selected from outside the United States government. We've noted that John Durham is inside the United States government. How does that square up? And how does that square up with Patrick Fitzgerald, who was the special counsel who put Scooter Libby through hell and back in the vain pursuit of a non-crime of the Bush era?
And also known as my co-counsel in the Blind Shake case.
I'd forgotten that. Okay.
Long ago and far away. Well, I think that Pat was in the same posture that Durham has been in since 2019, which is that the Attorney General, as we know under the regs, the last reg, which is 600.10, basically says that nothing in the regs is actionable. Nobody can object if the Attorney General doesn't comply with the letter of them. So it gives the Attorney General a lot of discretion to structure things as he wants to structure them. And I think in those investigations, and Judge Mukasey did this as well with Durham in connection with the CIA interrogations, the idea is to bring a good prosecutor from outside Washington into an investigation that's, Washington through and through. And these have been U.S. attorneys from outside the Washington area. Barr did it also with the guy in St. Louis, Jeff Jensen, who took a look at the Flynn investigation. I think this is a good practice, and it indicates that we do need something between the normal course of investigation by the Justice Department and the FBI versus like the independent aspiration of the special counsel when you have someone from outside Washington. Like you, I can't stand special counsels. I would prefer most of the time a solution in the middle where you brought a good prosecutor in who has a good reputation on both sides of the aisle from outside Washington to look at these cases. I think you'd be a lot better served than these empires that the special counsels build.
Well, we also get another confirmation never to believe the media. There was a departure from the Durham team of a longtime colleague, and everyone speculated it was because he was going to bring an indictment with which she disagreed. It probably turned out that she wanted to retire. But, who knows? We never know.
Right.
Last question. Hunter Biden and the allegations that would bring into play the Foreign Agents Registration Act and a bunch of other issues and money laundering and all that, they are not in the news accounts. Does that mean they are not now presently part of the writ of Durham, or that they could not become part of the writ of Durham before Barr leaves?
Oh, I don't think that they're part of the writ of Durham at all, and that would take the Durham investigation in a different direction. I think Durham's doing what he's doing, and Barr undoubtedly has somebody else dealing with that investigation. And that, I think, in a way that maybe the Durham investigation, because of the way that it unfolded, it is different. I think the Biden investigation, if it's serious, now we don't know what the details of the investigation are, but if it's a serious investigation and they are fearful that there was serious wrongdoing, that's the kind of thing where even I reluctantly would say you might have to have a special counsel for that.
And if that were the case from a preliminary review, would you expect Bill Barr to appoint said counsel before leaving and for the confirmation hearings to address that as well?
Yes, because otherwise, the problem you have is that it could go away, and it would be a real political hot potato. Barr would actually be doing a favor for whoever the next attorney general is.
Well, remember Ken Starr didn't want Monica Lewinsky. He tried
Right.
he tried to lateral that, and Janet Reno gave it back to him. Is that the precedent that Barr would follow if there's stuff out there? Look, I've got one standing over here. Let him just do it, or do you think he really ought to go find somebody new?
To go more broadly with what happened with Ken Starr, I think the whole debacle with Janet Reno and Chuck LaBella and everything that went on before Starr finally got appointed, which was under the statute, not under the reg, counsels in favor of having the current attorney general make whatever designation needs to be made, because it'll be a big problem for Biden's attorney general. I think it'd be much easier and cleaner if Barr just names a good, scrupulous special counsel, if there's a need for it, than to drop it in the lap of the next AG.
On that note, Andy, thank you for joining me. We look forward to reading your columns on this. They're always the go-to sort of definitive word for serious people who are not conspiracy nuts, but who do want to see justice done. Andrew C. McCarthy on Twitter. Thank you, Andrew. Let me make sure that I take my relief factor before the first hour is over. I didn't take it in the last segment because I was talking to Andrew. I could talk to Andrew for hours. Someone who actually knows what he's doing. I carry in Kirkham and Verichon Omega, plus lukewarm coffee. Equals, it's like my superpowers. And it's not much of a superpower. It means I can walk 6 to 10 miles this morning because it's a chilly day in the Beltway, but it's time to get out there and go walking. Out and about on the highways and byways of Old Town, and I'm going over to the river today. So maybe I'll see you and wave to you on King Street. But I carry in Kirkham and Resveratrol Omega, ReliefFactor.com. Get a starter pack for $19.95, 3-week supply. Get started on it and find out that it does support the temporary relief, some minor aches and pains, and come back for hour 2 of the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are in some sort of social gathering. And he's put out a statement saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. We're all gonna do better."
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated.
And he started counting them: 1, 2, 3, 4. And maybe he didn't realize that he had exceeded the number. First, he sends his children to in-person private school while attacking school choice and keeping public schools closed throughout California. Now he attends a private gathering while telling Californians to do otherwise.
Got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach.
Sacramento Bee editorial board, quote, "If Newsom can't get his head into the game, perhaps he should make the governor thing a one-term affair and leave the job open for someone with a desire to lead," end of quote. You know, he told you not to have a gathering of more than 10 people. He exceeded that, but spiritually he didn't exceed it. He may have exceeded it physically.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to a coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment. Yesterday, the governor of California imposed a month-long 10 p.m. curfew for nearly everybody in the most populous state in America, California. And I just take a lot of comfort in knowing that the Trump administration delivered essentially a vaccine that in normal times would have taken 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
Jennifer in Tustin, California. Hi.
Hi, Dennis. I love the fun on your show. More importantly, the clarity.
Yes. Well, if you like fun and clarity, I'm your man.
Excellent.
I'm your other man. You may be married or have a boyfriend.
Yes.
So I fully.
I am. I have a wonderful man.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm your other man.
Great.
Right.
I've heard you say. My question is, I've heard you say several times of late on the show that you would not take the COVID vaccine, and I feel the same way myself. But I'm wondering, what will I do if the COVID vaccine is mandatory? In the same way that, child vaccines are mandatory in many states. Have you thought about that?
I have thought about it. It's a real dilemma.
Okay.
If they don't allow you to go on an airplane without proof of a vaccine, I would have to weigh not being able to travel and give speeches and do my cruises I cannot live a life without travel. Yes, exactly. It's
right.
See, I want everybody listening who doesn't know, I've taken every vaccine offered, and my kids have taken all of them. I never had any interest in vaccines. I just took them. But I don't trust the medical establishment any longer. They, like the New York Times, they have lost me.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt. We're going to post the audio of my conversation with Andrew McCarthy from last hour on the appointment by Bill Barr of John Durham as an official special counsel, what it means, what it doesn't mean. Meanwhile, I would like to play for you the absolute fall over moment ever on MSNBC. Now, Andrea Mitchell's a fine host, and maybe she doesn't know the facts here, but Claire McCaskill should have had a bucket of water dumped on her when she said this. Cut number 7.
I think you will see in the first batch of confirmations some relatively easy votes for some of the nominees. I think Janet Yellen would go in that bucket. I think Tony Blinken will eventually go in that bucket, some of the big ones. The Republicans remember that there were many of us who voted for many of the Trump nominees, some of which I regretted after the fact, but they were qualified and he had been elected president. And that had typically been the norm in the Senate, not you never vote for the opposite party's cabinet. But, it is what it is.
May I remind you of Andy Puzner? Now, he was nominated to be Secretary of Labor. He was eminently qualified. He is my friend. He's from Ohio, and he's a Browns fan, so he has all that going for him. But they crucified Andy, and he was obliged to withdraw. So I don't want to hear about how the Democrats cooperated. She began by saying something cautious, which is, it appears that Yellen and Blinken will be confirmed, and she is right. They should be confirmed. But that is not the same as you get a free pass, because there's a ledger kept in the back room of the Senate somewhere. People turned down in the confirmation process. I went through that as special counsel to John Agresta when he was nominated to be the Archivist of the United States. And I remember that it was an absolute travesty of justice. The Archivist of the United States didn't want a historian, and John was the acting chairman of the National Endowment for the Humanities, and I was his general counsel there, so I was a general counsel in the confirmation process. And it was an absolute travesty, led by two senators, Mathias of Maryland and Eagleton of Missouri at the time. And there are legion of them. Some of them are very difficult votes for senators, like the decision to turn down John Tower to be Secretary of Defense during Bush 1 because of a drinking problem. And then some of them are outrageous, like the sliming of Andy Puzner. But I will tell you that anyone who comes up and says, well, will they get all their cabinet picks? It's not true. But more importantly, and where the follow-up and the water drop ought to have occurred, how did the Democrats treat Trump nominees generally? The answer is unparalleled obstructionism, slow walking everyone, cripple the government by virtue of not confirming. And therefore, everyone need to see that the level of interference with the incoming Trump team was unparalleled and continued for 4 years. I'm not recommending that. I just want you to know there's no way that the Mitch McConnell Senate can be more obstructionist than the Chuck Schumer minority was.
Trump nominees had to face?
It was an endless number.
128.
Yeah, so it's just slow walked everybody. That's where the water drop ought to have occurred, and there is no level of obstruction that the Republicans can do that will not have been previously done by Democrats. And then if you go back to Bush 2, at the beginning of Bush 2, all of the appeals court nominees were iced for 2 years, including the future Chief Justice of the United States. Then more of them were iced. They let the Chief Justice through on the D.C. Circuit because he'd been the Solicitor General of the United States after all. He was eminently qualified lawyer. They let a few of them through, and they still held up Miguel Estrada and many other fine lawyers like Bill Pryor and Janet Brown. There were many fine who got through and many fine who were sacrificed to the confirmation gods in the Gang of 14. There is nothing, no ground on which Democrats can stand to object to anything. They have no moral standing to object to any Senate rule that is used by any Republican for the next 4 years. They have set the bar so low to match. That's what needs to be said. Also want you to know what Chuck Schumer said remains very near and dear to my heart about Georgia, cut number 1.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change the world. Yeah! I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Schumer? Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
Okay, that's Chuck Schumer talking about why he's going to make Georgia an annex of Manhattan if Georgia votes for Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. I don't think Georgia's going to do that. I think they're going to vote for David Perdue, and I think they're going to vote for Kelly Loeffler, and I think they're going to register before December 7th and get out there and make sure that their vote count. And I believe they're going to begin voting early on December 15th and vote in record numbers to make sure that the United States Senate remains under the control of the Republicans, under the leadership of Mitch McConnell and John Thune. And it will continue to be a place of sweet reason and responsibility in an era that could be pretty crazy. How crazy? Here's Chuck Schumer at a presser yesterday on what Joe Biden will do on day 1, cut number 6.
Last one. Joe Biden said that on his first day of office, he will give transgender students access to sports, bathrooms, and locker rooms in accordance with their gender identity in all federally funded schools. Do you think he has the ability to do this, and do you agree with this decision?
I agree with the decision, and I know he'll check things out thoroughly legally. Thank you, everybody.
So day 1 for the Joe Biden administration, transgendered student access to sports and bathrooms. What a weird question for the leader, and the leader did not expand on it because Chuck Schumer doesn't really want to talk about it, but Georgia voters should know that's a day 1 priority for Joe Biden. Cut number 5, Chuck Schumer also commenting. I just spent a half hour with Andrew McCarthy about what happened yesterday. The appointment of John Durham as a special counsel into Russia. What did Chuck say? Cut number 5.
The $2 trillion demand that you previously had. And also, I'd like you to respond to Attorney General Bill Barr saying there was no widespread fraud, please.
Well, in response to Attorney General Bill Barr, I guess he's the next one to be fired. Since he now, too, says there's no fraud, Trump seems to fire anyone in that regard. In the first, Speaker Pelosi and I sent yesterday a proposal to Leader McConnell in an effort to get things moving.
There is, in fact, no reason to believe that Bill Barr is going to be fired by Donald Trump. That was silly. What he ought to have been asked about, again, this is the Washington Press Corps. What does it say that John Durham has been made a special counsel? That's the lead story. Karl Rove spoke about that on Fox with Bill Hemmer yesterday. Cut number 8.
Well, we can guarantee that this Durham investigation will continue unless and until Joe Biden's administration decides it wants to have a gigantic political kerfluffle by firing him. I think this guarantees that Durham, who's a career prosecutor, he's not a Republican, not a Democrat, career prosecutor, was made U.S. attorney by George W. Bush for the state of Connecticut and turned around and indicted and sent to jail the Republican governor of Connecticut, who was a close personal friend of President Bush's. So he's a tough character. He's going to do what he thinks is right. This appointment gives him the authority to continue beyond the end of the Trump administration. The only way I think they can end this is for the new administration to basically fire him, and I think there'd be political heck to pay if they tried to do that.
Wouldn't you love to see John Durham? And you got to picture him with the white beard and the glasses. Wouldn't you love to see him interrogating, doing a deposition of a suspect before a grand jury? I don't watch CSI or any of that stuff because none of it's real. That's not how investigations work. And Lord knows I'm not a prosecutor, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn. I worked at the Department of Justice and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act desk for the Attorney General back in the good old days of the Reagan administration. So I was a young briefcase-carrying lawyer with no authority whatsoever except to review warrants and make sure they complied with the law. But I look at the Durham picture and I think, that's like a picture of a prosecutor. If you walked into a grand jury and John Durham stands up with a bunch of papers, you're just not going to feel well at all. Let me tell you how you can feel better about yourself and about the country. You can donate to Angel Tree today. All you have to do is go to HughHewitt.com and go to the very top, and you'll see a banner. This has a Christmas tree with children on either side of it. And I want you to, for a moment, think about those kids. If your mother or father or both parents are in prison, Christmas is always iffy. You might have grandma, you might have an aunt, you might have brothers and sisters who are older, but you don't have mom or dad. You might not have both of them. And you really would at Christmas, especially the younger you are, love to get a present from them, love to get a note from them. If they send a Bible, you'll read it. For more than 3 decades, Angel Tree has done that. Last year for 370,000 children. This year, their delivery system is screwed up because Angel Tree operates off the church patios of America. They have sign-up desks everywhere. Well, guess what? You can give anyway and make sure that you are doing what you did last year. I'd ask you to do double of whatever you did last year, whether it was 1 child this year, do 2. If you did 2 children last year, do 4, etc. It's $22 per child. And make sure that Christmas joy gets to those children along with a note from mom or dad and a Bible and presents, because Christmas isn't Christmas without a little wrapping paper and the love of a parent. So Angel Tree at HughHewitt.com. Come right back, America.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Now, I just was reading some other news as I was getting ready for the show today. Johnson & Johnson, which has not been mentioned in the equation. It's all been Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical giant, is going to seek FDA authorization for their vaccine. And their vaccine is a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. And it looks like it might be February or sooner. We are likely weeks away from sort of going in an entirely different direction and getting closer to putting this behind us. Remember when Brett Baer used to say we're one day closer to this end of coronavirus? We need it. We need it. I know there's lots of arguing and anger and frustration over the election. There should be. We knew all along, all of us knew that when you're encouraging millions and millions of people to mail in ballots because of COVID, that there was a real strong potential for, I don't know, the 27 toss-up races to all be won by Republicans down ballot, but Trump couldn't quite hold off, couldn't quite pull it off. Yeah, right. Biden got 10 million more votes than Barack Obama did. Yeah, right. Americans are not stupid. We're not blind. And we may be frustrated right now, and we may be stressed, and we may be prepared for whatever comes our way. We're going to persevere.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
All right, let's begin with Jamie in Freehold, New Jersey, the famous Jamie of Freehold. Hello.
How are you today? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
So, I'm 46 years old. I just have to say that I discovered you about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the happiness hour makes my week.
I love that.
I literally look forward to you singing the original lyrics.
I love you for that. No, the original lyrics line. You cracked me up.
The original lyrics.
Yes,
yeah.
every
anyway,
week.
I recently, yes, absolutely. When I miss it, I'm unhappy.
Gotcha.
So I recently started smoking cigars, and I was just curious, very simply, what's your favorite cigar and why?
So I have a number of answers to that, and even though 98% of you don't smoke cigars, you should still be interested in the question because it's philosophic. It's not just cigars, and I'll explain why. So I have two answers, and one is, if I were to ask you what is your favorite food, would you have an answer?
No, because I have multiple.
Oh, that's my answer on cigars.
So if you were in a jolly good mood in front of one of your fireside chats, what's one that you'd go to?
All right, so now it's not one. There is a generic type that I tend to love.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
I love Bing Crosby, and, it's not because I've been compared to him vocally. It's just because God bless you, gentlemen, God bless you, is one of my favorite lines in the in the repertoire of, and Ben is going to find the point where it actually repeats at some point. Ben is sitting in for Adam today. He's going to find that point at some point where he says it 3 times in a row. But we'll get there eventually. Listen, I think that those of you who are blessed, I've already told you about Angel Tree. Please run over to HughHewitt.com. The more you give at Christmas time, the more you get. That's in grace and blessing, and it's absolutely true. And you can give through Angel Tree to children who will not get Christmas. They won't have that Christmas unless you are supporting them at the banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. Let me check the markets now. Brought to you, of course, by Andrew and Todd.com. Maybe you want to get a house for Christmas or refinancing or a reverse mortgage. Maybe you want to get ahead and do exactly what all of your friends and family ought to have done, refinance and lower your monthly cost or get money out for college. Or if you're a senior, just do a reverse mortgage and get as much cash as you can without ever having to make another mortgage payment on your house. It's just a reverse mortgage works wonderfully if you're over 62 and you're dealing with your principal residence. AndrewandTodd.com. Answer a couple of questions. Doesn't have to be detailed. Kept very, very safe. Or you can call them at 888-888-1172. 888-888-1172. Yesterday, the Dow was up 185 points. The NASDAQ was up 146. The S&P was up 40 points. It was the day where word about Cyber Monday came through, and so Amazon went up $52 a share, and I imagine Costco and Target and Walmart did the same because news came out that Americans spent $10.8 billion online Monday. A staggering number. It's a huge migration away from brick and mortar shopping. The malls are basically empty, and so they are out there doing their shopping online. And overseas this morning, we have seen that the markets are kind of flat. They're up in England. They're down a little bit in Germany. Basically, the reverse image of each other. Up a little bit in Japan, down a little bit in Hong Kong. They're waiting for the United States to lead. Will the rally continue in the internet stocks? We will wait and see. But at a great time because the 10-year Treasury went up for the first time significantly to 0.93%. It's still far lower than anything I said in 2018 and 2019. Until March and the virus. They were up at 2.5%, and people were getting 4.5% loans. Now, if you go and get 30-year loans, you're going to be in the 3s and maybe the 2s, but not for long. The economy is stabilized. The vaccines are rolling out. The United Kingdom approved the Pfizer vaccine yesterday. They've got a distribution system. The FDA's advisory council made a recommendation on who gets it first. Same thing is going to happen here in the United States. Very quickly. The dosages are rolling out. Operation Warp Speed is a miracle of science and logistics. The technology is amazing that's been developed. The rollout will be amazing. The country will be protected by March in large part and by summer in almost complete part because I believe people are going to get the word. And if you are someone who doesn't trust vaccines, you're just going to have to trust us on this one. You can't allow the country to go down the tubes. You have to go and stop this in its tracks, get as many people vaccinated as soon as possible. That will immunize most of America, and there will be no host for the virus to spread to, and it will wither out. And like polio, like measles, it can be contained and beaten back forever. We'll find out how long the vaccines last. You may have to get it annually. I don't know. But we know you got to start by getting 2 shots first. And I'm going to be talking about it every day, and I hope that the radio world, Will Salem, is certainly committed to getting the word out about those vaccines. And I know that lots of populations have to hear about it, but what a positive economic effect they have had already and will continue to have. That's the great good news of Christmas 2020. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm coming back with Representative Mike Gallagher to talk about what Joe Biden wants to do. He told Tom Friedman it's not good news. Stay tuned. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strachan.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are in some sort of social gathering. And he's put out a statement saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. We're all gonna do better."
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated.
And he started counting them: 1, 2, 3, 4. And maybe he didn't realize that he had exceeded the number. First, he sends his children to in-person private school while attacking school choice and keeping public schools closed throughout California. Now he attends a private gathering while telling Californians to do otherwise.
Got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach.
Sacramento Bee editorial board, quote, "If Newsom can't get his head into the game, perhaps he should make the governor thing a one-term affair and leave the job open for someone with a desire to lead," end of quote. You know, he told you not to have a gathering of more than 10 people. He exceeded that, but spiritually he didn't exceed it. He may have exceeded it physically.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment. Yesterday, the governor of California imposed a month-long 10 p.m. curfew for nearly everybody in the most populous state in America, California. And I just take a lot of comfort in knowing that the Trump administration delivered essentially a vaccine that in normal times would have taken 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
Jennifer in Tustin, California.
He missed it again. It's unbelievable, America. Ben Brigman, God bless him. He cannot find the refrain of God bless you, but it is appropriate that he plays. If you have gotten a turkey wing, God bless you, because they got lots of turkeys up in Green Bay and they're playing football. I'm joined by Mike Gallagher, Congressman extraordinaire from the Armed Services Committee. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Hugh. How are you?
You don't sound very jolly. Did you just wake up?
Listen, I got in late last night from Green Bay. There was an ice delay in Detroit, so I'm just getting into the swing of things back here at the Beltway.
Let's get the violins out. We got an ice delay in Detroit. Always blame the Lions, never blame the Packers. So, Congressman, there is a column this morning which you've got to read when you wake up. It's in Thomas Friedman got a call from the president-elect yesterday talking about that we're going to go back into the Iran deal. We just have to expand it to cover ballistic missiles. What do you think?
I think that the president-elect is heading into very dangerous territory by thinking that he can get back into the Iran deal, even if it expands to the coverage of ballistic missiles. An expansion that I would support because you still have some fatal flaws in the deal, particularly the sunset provision in the deal, which, by the way, a lot of time has elapsed since the deal went into place. So we're nearing some of the deadlines for the sunset provisions to take hold and thereby making the deal impermanent at best. More to the point, I think Thomas Friedman also recently wrote a column which was remarkable. Even he recognizes that there is a new reality on the ground in the Middle East. The framework codified in the Abraham Accords, whereby the Sunni Arab Gulf states have reached a rapprochement with Israel, a framework that seems to be expanding by the day, is the foundation of stability in the region going forward. And any attempt to go back into the Iran deal risks upending that very positive framework. And also, by the way, as I've said on your program before, if indeed President-elect Joe Biden goes back into the Iran deal, ignores that emerging framework, angers our traditional allies, whether they're the Sunni or Gulf states or the Israelis, he risks any attempt to shift more resources to the Indo-Pacific. He risks getting sucked into more chaos in the Middle East, and his overall foreign policy risks suffering the same fate that President Obama's foreign policy did, whereby he tried to pivot to the Pacific, but because he misunderstood the Middle East, he had to go back and confront ongoing chaos. So I just worry that the forthcoming Biden administration is heading down the wrong path here. They are misunderstanding the nature of the Iranian regime, and they're going back to this dangerous fantasy, the John Kerry fantasy, that the Iran deal is a ticket to a new equilibrium in the Middle East. But we've already run this experiment, and it failed.
I have a suggestion, Congressman Gallagher. Jake Sullivan, who is the incoming National Security Advisor, is by all accounts, and I have friends who know him, I do not know him, a very brilliant, smart young guy. But like me, he's a civilian. I would like to see Senator Cotton and you, Michael Waltz of Florida, and Dan Crenshaw of Texas take him to lunch in the Senate dining room or the House dining room and just talk about what it's like to be in Iraq when the Iranians are trying to kill you. Because this is, to me, the one thing that they did not have in the Obama era was an appreciation of how doggedly Iran tried to and successfully killed and wounded Americans. And maybe you four, there might be others. I'm not excluding anyone from this, but I know that Cotton and you and Waltz and Crenshaw lived the reality of Iranian aggression against America. Have you ever talked to Jake Sullivan, period? And would you be willing to tell him about that experience?
I have. I know Jake, and he recently wrote something in Foreign Affairs on China that had a lot of smart ideas in it, and I do think was a genuine recognition that the past approach to China the cooperative approach to China was not sufficient and that we needed to take a more competitive approach. And I very much hope that means that they will embrace all of the positive developments that the Trump administration is responsible for with respect to China as the foundation for the future of foreign policy. Obviously, they're not going to agree with 100% of everything the Trump administration did, but when it comes to the most pivotal region of the world, Indo-PACOM, I think there are enormous successes to build off of. So I am more than happy to engage with Jake directly, or really anyone in the White House who wants to work on these issues. I see no reason why we can't, particularly unified by the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party, lay the foundation for a bipartisan foreign policy. But if the theory that they work under is that climate change is the overwhelming issue for U.S. national security, and every other issue must be subordinated to that issue, such that we must go back to a cooperative relationship with the Chinese Communist Party, ignore their island building, ignore their impression of a million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps, then that foreign policy is destined to fail, and I will have to be honest and energetic in my opposition to foreign policy changes that I view to be misguided, particularly if they involve cutting the defense budget and cutting the U.S. Navy at a time when we need to be increasing our deterrent posture. So more than happy to engage with Jake. He is indeed a very thoughtful person, and I think he welcomes disagreement, but I just worry that there's so much cost sunk into the Iran deal on the Democratic Party that they just feel like they have to get back into it. And again, I just think that is misunderstanding the nature of the Middle East. And I really worry that it's going to scuttle all of the progress that we've made overall on U.S. grand strategy in the last 4 years.
There is a theory in economics called sunk costs, which is where you continue to invest in a failed project. The Iran deal was always the fantasy football of foreign affairs. It's not real foreign affairs. It's an Iran that exists in their imagination. It's an Iran that cheated immediately. It's an Iran that kills and exports terror. It's an Iran that is based in a theocracy that only can be satisfied by worldwide domination and the destruction of Israel. But I understand fantasy football enthusiasts love it so much because they can't play the game. You and Waltz and Crenshaw and Cotton have been on the receiving end. You were in Iraq. You know what it means to have to go out on beyond the wire when the Iranians are trying to kill you. That's what I don't think they get. I honestly do not believe they understand Iran, the real Iran.
Well, if you look at the logic of the deal, right, and this is what they said publicly, it's that we're going to get the Iranians hooked on cash. We're going to get them hooked on American cash in the deal. And that's going to empower the moderate faction in the Iranian government. But I believe Ben Rhodes subsequently admitted that the whole idea of a moderate faction is a farce in the Iranian government and misunderstands the nature of the regime and power centers within the regime. And the cash that we gave to the Iranian government didn't somehow trickle down to the Iranian middle class and produce more moderation politically or geopolitically. It produced the opposite, right? It allowed them to funnel that cash into their terrorist proxies around the region, into their expanding ballistic missile program, allowed them to invest in some high-tech weaponry, such as the drones that they used to attack the Abqaiq oil facility in Saudi Arabia. And so that cash very much empowered the regime at the expense of the people which persistently were protesting for the better part of last year. So there is sort of a paradox right now in the Middle East. On the one hand, the Iranian regime is more powerful because of the deal. But what we have witnessed since President Trump rightfully walked away from the deal is that the regime is in a much more precarious position than we thought, both domestically because of unrest within Iran from its own people that it has terrorized in addition to the entire region, and also in a more precarious position regionally. And the taking out Qasem Soleimani off the battlefield in Iraq illustrates that fact. The recent assassination of the Iranian nuclear scientist illustrates that fact. And just the emerging alliance between our traditional allies, an alliance built in opposition to that Iran, hastens that fact or builds momentum behind exploiting the weakness of the Iranian regime. And so if the Biden administration doesn't understand that basic point about the Middle East, they're just going to get the policy wrong. And the tragedy of that, Hugh, is that we're going to have to invest more U.S. resources in the Middle East. And I don't think we want that, right? We want to arrive at a more sustainable force posture where we can rely upon our traditional allies. We can have a high impact with a light footprint using our special operators to work by, with, and through local allies on the ground. That is the best way to, over time, ensure we continue to get stability in the Middle East while not having to deploy massive numbers of U.S. troops.
Last question, Mike Gallagher. In the interview with Tom Friedman, President-elect Biden said about Mitch McConnell, he knows me, I know him. I don't ask him to embarrass himself to make a deal. So he expects to negotiate with the leader in the Senate. I think the number one thing, number two thing, and number three thing should be top-line defense budget increases. Do you believe the leader agrees with you, and will there form a coalition around not hollowing out the Pentagon again?
Well, I do think Leader McConnell has an appreciation for defense spending and the need to continue to build upon the successes we've had in the last 4 years. I do not know if that's his top priority. I hope it will be. Beyond that, I think there is an opportunity to cooperate on things such as an enhanced investment in research and development for critical technologies that we're going to need to beat China, whether it's 5G, whether it's rare earth, things like that, or medical supplies, drugs. That's what we've learned in this pandemic. And then I think there's just a low-hanging fruit, something we could pass tomorrow, and we should pass prior to the inauguration in January, and that's to take the over $138 billion in unspent PPP funds, repurpose it, get it out there to businesses that still need it due to the pandemic, but other areas where it can be effective. So that's just a low-hanging fruit right now that I know McConnell knows about and is trying to prioritize, and I hope that Biden will approach him in good faith.
Mike Gallagher, Congressman from Wisconsin, thank you as always. Time to go back to bed. I know we got you up early, the ice storm in Detroit, you blamed it, but enjoy the rest of the day. I myself would go out and do 10 miles if I were you and shake it off.
I'm about to go for a run, Hugh, in fact.
I'll look for you out there. We'll see if that's the case. Thank you, Congressman. Mike Gallagher, follow him on Twitter at Rep Gallagher, Follow me too. I should have sent Mike Gallagher some relieffactor.com. There it is. I took it in the last hour. I remind you about it in hours 2 and 3 because I want Mike and everybody else who's trying to negotiate the highways and byways of the Beltway to get their exercise in, even though it's chilly here. It's cold. Last night, our dinner guest, the commissioner of the Salvation Army, Ken, and his wife, Jolene, Commissioner Jolene Hodder, were here for dinner. And I said, what do you do when, because he's a walker runner. They are both walker runners like the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I are. What do you do when it gets this cold? Because they're from California. And we said, well, we go back to California. So I felt bad. He can't do that. We can do that. He's got to stay here and lead the Salvation Army. She's got to stay here and lead the Salvation Army. But I should have given them some relief factor. I forgot to. And they were at the house, too. That was too bad. They've also begun rescuechristmas.org. I hope you go and look at that because it's... Boy, they're down 50% kettles, meaning that they can only put out half the kettles they normally do. Foot traffic in the shopping areas is dramatically down, but the demands on the Army are up 155%. So go to rescuechristmas.org if that makes an impression on you, and then go to relieffactor.com because I'm about to sneeze 3 or 4 times, but ReliefFactor.com doesn't cause you to sneeze, it just makes you feel better. Supports the temporary relief of minor aches and pains. We're going to get the Bing Crosby thing done right. This is the Ben Bergman challenge of the day. We're going to get it done right when we come back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are in some sort of social gathering. And he's put out a statement saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. We're all gonna do better."
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated.
And he started counting them: 1, 2, 3, 4. And maybe he didn't realize that he had exceeded the number. First, he sends his children to in-person private school while attacking school choice and keeping public schools closed throughout California. Now he attends a private gathering while telling Californians to do otherwise.
Got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Sacramento Bee editorial board, quote, "If Newsom can't get his head into the game, perhaps he should make the governor thing a one-term affair and leave the job open for someone with a desire to lead," end of quote. You know, he told you not to have a gathering of more than 10 people. He exceeded that, but spiritually he didn't exceed it. He may have exceeded it physically.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Can you hear me?
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Okay, I'm not hearing you. I don't know what's wrong here.
Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the
You, if you're talking to me, I can't hear you. Use some. I can't hear you if you're talking to me. Somebody needs to push a button or something.
Eggnog last night, and so
there you go.
All right, so you got to understand, Ben and Holly had eggnog last night. They're a little bit slow in the studio today.
I was trying to read your lips.
Yeah, well, read my lips. No new taxes, but a lot of defense spending. I read your National Review article. I just told people about it. I just had Gallagher on. I want them to take Cotton, Michael Walls, Dan Crenshaw, Gallagher, you, and get Jake Sullivan and explain to him we got to have top-line defense spending increases. That's the number one thing.
We are just beginning to dig ourselves out of the current readiness hole because of the sequester. We have to recapitalize the legacy programs while building the advanced weapon programs we need. We cannot do it with a freeze or cut. And I do not want whoever the Secretary of Defense is to walk in there and say, we're in an era of fiscal constraint, so my department has to take a haircut. after we've borrowed $3 trillion for this, and they're going to walk in and want to bail out the states that have been mismanaged all these years. Don't come in and tell us we're in an era of fiscal constraint, and every nominee to the E-ring needs to be asked that question.
Now, Senator, there is a column today where the president-elect called up Thomas Friedman, and President-elect Biden referenced Mitch McConnell, saying, quote, "Mitch knows me, I know him. I don't ask him to embarrass himself to make a deal." So he's pretty much conceding the Georgia Senate races. I think Democrats understand that they're going to lose because of Chuck Schumer down there, and Raphael Warnock is a radical, and John Ossoff makes AOC look conservative. So they're going to be in the minority. So it's McConnell and Biden. Will Leader McConnell make a top-line increase in defense spending, backed up by Inhofe and the appropriators, his number one priority?
Well, I think it'll be a top priority, but this is the job of the people on the Armed Services Committee and the people who understand the department and the position we're in the Western Pacific, where the Chinese have been aggressive across the board in the last year. Yeah, I think, look, the leader is a patriot. And if his people go to him and say, look, we need this top line increase, I believe the Senate will fight for one. But you, the person in Washington who's got to fight for the department's equities, is the Secretary of Defense.
We don't know who that's going to be. Unfortunately, we went through 4 years of the Trump administration where that was not the case.
No,
they worried about, it's the biggest missed opportunity in the history of defense hawks. We got some money, but they didn't spend it where we wanted them to spend it, and they didn't make any changes and reallocations. They didn't do any of the hard stuff. If you were the king of the forest within the universe of possibilities, who would you advise the president-elect to nominate for DOD?
Well, I know you like Michelle Flournoy. Michelle is very qualified by experience, by training. She knows the issues. She just has to agree to go down and fight for the department. I mean, this cannot be a case where they use her experience and expertise as a cover for a freeze or a cut in the defense budget. We need substantial increases above the rate of inflation. And I do think Michelle will use the money effectively. But as we say in Missouri, you can't pour a 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound sack. It doesn't matter how you cut the potatoes. If we don't have the money, we can't do what we need to do to defend the country.
And the reverse of that is if you need 10 pounds of potatoes and you start with 5, you're not going to have 10. And you're going to end up with half of the bucket full. And so I wonder if we can just agree, if everyone will, remember the Committee for the Present Danger? There needs to be a new iteration of that where it's just a very simple message. Top line defense spending increases, and do not put into the DOD Operation Green New Deal. Do not put into the DOD logistical requirements for Operation Warp Speed. Put into the DOD submarines, carriers, and planes. That's what, and cyber.
And the end strength to support them. The new Ohio class replacement, right? Modernizing the triad, standing up the space service and replacing the space architecture, building up the size of the Navy, buying out the F-35 requirement. This can't be done with current budgets, Hugh. We have clawed back current readiness. We're still on thin ice, but we're better than we were 3 years ago. But now we have to build for the current time in the Western Pacific, and also at the same time for where we need to be in 2030. And we need money to do that. And if the department's leaders are not fighting for it, you can't expect people in the Congress, whether it's the leaders or anybody else, to go in and fight for it. They've got to go in, beginning with OMB and the new person they want to run OMB.
Well, Inhofe, Chairman Inhofe, will be overhearing the DOD confirmation hearing, and Cotton and other very solid senators are on that committee. I think they'll make this top line increase a focus of the hearings. Do you, Jim? We got 20 seconds.
I have full confidence in Tom Cotton and Gallagher and the people you're talking about now, Lynn Cheney. I mean, there's a lot of outstanding advocates on that committee. So I have full confidence in them, but we need to focus them on what's going to happen if they don't get busy, which is, we have to have a freeze because we're in an era of fiscal constraint. Make them defend that, not assume we're in an era of fiscal constraint. Make them defend that. We need a budget that is driven by the needs of the country and the department, not by somebody at OMB who wants to increase spending every place else, but doesn't want to give the money to the department. You went out on me again, if you're talking to me.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Appreciate it. Chris is in San Antonio, Texas. Chris, you're on The Larry Elder Show.
Oh, wow. What an honor to speak with the great Eldersky. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Chris.
I guess my question is, can you imagine if this goes to the courts and then it goes to Congress and then it goes for President Trump like we all know it should?
Chris, mass suicide. Mass suicide.
This whole cities are going to be burning to the ground.
Their ears would explode. I mean, it would be catastrophic for the left if Donald Trump were awarded the election. You think we feel that the election was fraudulent? What do you think they're going to feel? They're going to go absolutely bonkers. They believe that the Russians not only interfered, but 78% of them believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election, even though our intelligence committee has never reached that conclusion. So they're going to go absolutely bonkers. Remember what Hillary advised Joe Biden?
So we've got to have a massive legal operation. I know the Biden campaign is working on that. We have to have poll workers, and I urge people who are able to be a poll worker. We have to have our own teams of people to counter the force of intimidation that the Republicans and Trump are going to put outside polling places. This is a big organizational challenge, but at least we know more about what they're going to do. And, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
They would go absolutely ballistic.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Now, I just was reading some other news as I was getting ready for the show today. Johnson & Johnson, which has not been mentioned in the equation. It's all been Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical giant, is going to seek FDA authorization for their vaccine. And their vaccine is a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. And it looks like it might be February or sooner. We are likely weeks away from sort of going in an entirely different direction and getting closer to putting this behind us. Remember when Brett Baer used to say we're one day closer to this end of coronavirus? We need it. We need it. I know there's lots of arguing and anger and frustration over the election. There should be. We knew all along, all of us knew that when you're encouraging millions and millions of people to mail in ballots because of COVID, that there was a real strong potential for, the 27 toss-up races to all be won by Republicans down ballot, but Trump couldn't quite pull it off. Yeah, right. Biden got 10 million more votes than Barack Obama did. Yeah, right. Americans are not stupid. We're not blind. And we may be frustrated right now, and we may be stressed, and we may be prepared for whatever comes our way. We're going to persevere.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
All right, let's begin with Jamie in Freehold, New Jersey. The famous Jamie of Freehold. Hello.
How are you today? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
So, I'm 46 years old. I just have to say that I discovered you about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the happiness hour makes my week.
I love that.
I literally look forward to you singing the original lyrics.
I love you for that. No, the original lyrics line. You cracked me up.
The original lyrics.
Yes,
yeah.
every
anyway,
week.
I recently, yes, absolutely. When I miss it, I'm unhappy.
Gotcha.
So I recently started smoking cigars, and I was just curious, very simply, What's your favorite cigar and why?
So I have a number of answers to that, and even though 98% of you don't smoke cigars, you should still be interested in the question because it's philosophic. It's not just cigars, and I'll explain why. So I have two answers, and one is, if I were to ask you what is your favorite food, would you have an answer?
No, because I have multiple.
Oh, that's my answer on cigars.
So if you were in a jolly good mood in front of one of your fireside chats, what's one that you'd go to?
All right, so now it's not one, there is a generic type that I tend to love.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are.
Welcome back, America. Morning Glory. I have no idea what Ben's doing playing the Ames Brothers. I really don't.
This isn't the Ames
Bing
Brothers.
Crosby and the Ames Brothers. He's got lined up. And
This isn't Bing Crosby.
It's the Ames Brothers.
It's just not the Ames Brothers.
It's just a crazy mix of a disaster. They had a Christmas party in the studio West Coast last night, and they were into the wassail something fierce. And now Adam's not in, and Harley and Ben are mixed up, and they can't work the Skype. It's a terrible
So other
disaster.
than the wrong artist and the wrong song, you did just fine calling for it.
I want to tell you, I see a collapse of discipline without me. I've got to get back to the West Coast.
Ben has a class
virus.
action suit against you for setting him up for failure.
I have been in the Beltway too long. I have not made an on-the-ground inspection of the West Coast.
Is this the song you were looking for?
No! I want the song Ben was playing. I want the refrain in the song.
It doesn't exist. The refrain you want
Adam
is
will
from
play
that
it tomorrow.
song.
Honest
It
to
doesn't
goodness,
exist.
When he sleeps it off, when you all get back onto your A game, it will be fine. Good morning, America. Good morning. If you're just arriving, let me run down the news for you. President-elect Biden called Tom Friedman yesterday. It's a column in the New York Times, and said, we're going back into the Iran deal. And I said, oh, my gosh. It's like the worst mistake you can make. It's fantasy football foreign policy as opposed to real foreign policy. It's fantasy football national security. Now, Jake Sullivan is very smart. Tony Blinken knows it was a disaster. This is not Ben Rhodes and Barack Obama. They don't have to make the same mistakes twice. They don't have to do this. The good news is in the telephone call, he said, I know I got to deal with Mitch, and Mitch and I can get a deal done, which is a recognition that, of course, they've lost the Senate races in Georgia. Why did they lose the Senate races in Georgia? I am sure that Joe Biden, like everybody else, has heard Chuck Schumer say this, cut number one.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change the world. Yeah! I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Schumer? Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
So, you know, when you take Georgia from Manhattan, that doesn't go over well with the Southerners in the Peach State. Can we play that again? I love hearing Chuck Schumer threaten Georgia with annexation to Manhattan. Cut number one.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change the world. Yeah! I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Schumer? Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
Now, you know, I know a lot of people in Georgia who like to visit Manhattan. My buddy Glenn loves the restaurants up there. My friend Dario loves to visit Manhattan, where he used to live, but he moved to Atlanta. Got lots of friends in Georgia who like to go to Manhattan, but they don't want to be run by Manhattan. They're Georgians, and they want David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler to continue to be Georgians and to run the Senate. They do not want Raphael Warnock saying cut number 4.
America, nobody can serve God and the military.
You see, play that again, please. That's not edited. That's exactly what he said.
America, nobody can serve God and the military.
Now, you know, every Blue Star family out there that prays for their son or daughter in uniform, their husband or wife in uniform, their grandchildren in uniform, or who had a father or mother serve and are praying folks, they know that's not true. They know that there's like the Christian Officers Association. They know that there are NCOs who are deeply devout. They know that a lot of people pray in foxholes only. But there's a whole lot of people serving God in the military, and Raphael Warnock does not deserve to go to the Senate if he's going to preach that from a pulpit. And they're trying to say, you can't bring that up. That's mixing church. That's what you said Amy Coney Barrett shouldn't be accused of. No, this is not a religious test. It's an anti-religious test. If you're going to be anti-religion, even if you're in the pulpit, then you cannot come up there and expect the men and women in uniform to serve you. And if you're John Ossoff and you want to run a new McCarthyism from the left, here's John Ossoff, AOC Light, threatening everyone who loves Donald Trump. Cut number 2.
We need to send a message this year. We need to send a message that if you indulge this kind of politics, you're not just going to get beaten. You're going to get beaten so bad you can never run or show your face again in public. Because we have had enough, absolutely enough, of what we are getting from Donald Trump and his fellow travelers right now.
Now, I'm hoping that the African-American community in Georgia especially, they voted for Donald Trump. They didn't double. 50% higher African-American men voted for Trump in 2020 than voted for him in 2016. 50% more African-American women voted for Trump in 2020 than did in 2016. I hope they all turn out again. And I hope everyone who sat out the election because they thought Georgia was in the bag, I hope you go get registered. You have a couple more days. If you didn't vote on November the 3rd, you can vote in the runoffs for Senate. And you can get registered until December 7th, and you can begin voting, early voting on December 15th. Give the country a Christmas present and vote for Donald Trump's endorsed candidates, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. Senators Perdue and Loeffler are going to win. They're going to win big. And then Joe Biden is not going to be able to slash defense spending, put left-wing nuts on the courts, and do the whole agenda. Now, there's nothing to stop him from going back into the JCPOA except common sense except for experience, which is why I am hoping that Senator Cotton and Michael Waltz of Florida, who's a special operator, and Mike Gallagher, who's a Marine Intel officer, and the wonderful Dan Crenshaw. So we got all the branches covered there, Army and Navy and Marines. And I'm sorry, the Air Force, I'm sure there's an Air Force person in the Congress I'm not remembering who fought in Iraq. Martha McSally won't be there anymore. In fact, I think Captain Kelly gets sworn in at the end of the month. Very, very soon. He'll be Senator Kelly. So we're not going to have an Air Force combat veteran of Iraq there. But we will have enough people to go over to the White House and say, this is not fantasy football. Iran is not a pretend state. It's a real state with a real record, and they're trying to kill Americans all over the world. And they're trying to destroy Israel, and we cannot go back to the deal. But we'll see what Joe Biden told Tom Friedman yesterday he was going to do that. Let me check the markets for you if I can, because it is, of course, that time of the day brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com, AndrewandTodd.com, the world's best lenders with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. If you need to get money out of your house, if you need to refinance, if you need to get a reverse mortgage because you're a senior citizen. I've known Andrew for 20 plus years. We were in a Bible study together for many years. I've known Todd for 8 years. Andrew and Todd are great Christian guys. They're terrific, trustworthy folks. They built an amazing office full of professionals from soup to nuts. They're not a broker. They're not a call center. It's an office that lends money. They underwrite the loan. They go over it with you. They improve your credit score. They help people with credit things. They help you get a reverse mortgage. If you're a veteran and you don't want to put any money down, they'll help you. If you want to become a non-occupying co-borrower, meaning you're not going to move into the house you're helping to buy, you are helping your son or daughter or granddaughter or grandson or someone in the family get a bigger house or build, that you can do that. You can use your great credit to help them. Right now, the interest rates are at 0.93% for the 10-year Treasury. That's not the interest rate that AndrewandTodd.com will offer you, but you'll be in the 2s or the 3s. But that's not going to last. Inflation is coming, knocking at the door. I know Dwayne hates it when I do that near the microphone. But you got to go to AndrewandTodd.com or call them at 888-888-1172. Yesterday, the Dow surged up 185 points. NASDAQ was on fire, went up 156, and the S&P was up 40. Overseas this morning, it's a mixed market. We don't know what today will bring on the United States stock market, but we do know that Cyber Monday saw Americans spend $10.8 billion, a 15% increase over last year. We know that Black Friday was down in brick and mortar retail as people don't shop. And we know that those people instead are spending online, so that the Amazons and the Walmarts, I see Walmart cut their shipping today in an attempt to keep up with Amazon. Amazon must be in their kick and running away from everybody. I hope so. I own Amazon stock. But Walmart, I want them to do well too, and Costco, and I want everyone who employs people to do well. They're all just killing it. Brick and mortar, I don't know when it comes back. Restaurants will bounce back. I'm not sure about retail. I also know that because I had dinner last night, Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I hosted Commissioner Ken Hodder and Commissioner Jolene Hodder at our home. They are the major domos of the Salvation Army of the United States. They're only 50% of the kettles out there. Normally, they're all over the country. They're only 1 out of every 2 because of the virus. But the demands on the Salvation Army have gone up 155%. And they put RescueChristmas.org up this year instead of all the other stuff. RescueChristmas.org. Look, the lost and the least did not get fed miraculously. Only the Salvation Army does that. So I want you to donate to Angel Tree. I want you to be generous everywhere. But when you go online today, remember RescueChristmas.org. I'm going to go ring a bell with Commissioner Hodder on Friday at a local Walmart because Walmart still welcomes the kettles. God bless them. Target does not. Keep that in mind on when you decide where to shop. Walmart welcomes the kettles. Target does not. Keep that in mind. I'll be right back. Amazon supports the Salvation Army, by the way. I don't know about Costco, but Walmart welcomes the kettles. That means a lot to me. Target does not. Stay tuned to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Appreciate it. Chris is in San Antonio, Texas. Chris, you're on The Larry Elder Show.
Oh, wow. What an honor to speak with the great Eldersky. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Chris.
I guess my question is, can you imagine if this goes to the courts and then it goes to Congress and then it goes for President Trump like we all know it should?
Chris, mass suicide. Mass suicide.
This whole cities are going to be burning to the ground.
Their ears would explode. I mean, it would be catastrophic for the left if Donald Trump were awarded the election. You think we feel that the election was fraudulent? What do you think they're going to feel? They're going to go absolutely bonkers. They believe that the Russians not only interfered, but 78% of them believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election, even though our intelligence committee has never reached that conclusion. So they're going to go absolutely bonkers. Remember what Hillary advised Joe Biden?
So we've got to have a massive legal operation, and I know the Biden campaign is working on that. We have to have poll workers, and I urge people who are able to be a poll worker. We have to have our own teams of people to counter the force of intimidation that the Republicans and Trump are going to put outside polling places. This is a big organizational challenge, but at least we know more about what they're going to do. And, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
They would go absolutely ballistic.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Now, I just was reading some other news as I was getting ready for the show today. Johnson & Johnson, which has not been mentioned in the equation. It's all been Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical giant, is going to seek FDA authorization for their vaccine. And their vaccine is a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine.
My part's
looks like it might be February or sooner. We are likely weeks away from sort of going in an entirely different direction and getting closer to putting this behind us. Remember when Brett Baer used to say we're one day closer to this end of coronavirus? We need it. We need it. I know there's lots of arguing and anger and frustration over the election. There should be. We knew all along, all of us knew that when you're encouraging millions and millions of people to mail in ballots because of COVID, that there was a real strong potential for
Welcome back, America. That's the Ames Brothers. I do not know what's happened back there. All I want is one song. I can't even get one song out of these people.
Tell me what song you want. What's the name of it?
The Bing Crosby, God Bless You song. That's what I want. I want the refrain from the Bing Crosby, God Bless You song.
It's
and
not
I know
there.
You guys, Adam will find it tomorrow. Adam will get it done. I trust in Adam, but you can't just be having Christmas parties on Tuesday night and expect to have full efficiency on Wednesday. Let me talk about what Karl Rove said to Bill Hemmer. Earlier this morning, I talked with Andrew C. McCarthy. The biggest news yesterday, of course, legacy media did not cover it, is that Attorney General Barr, yes, he said there's no fraud sufficient to overturn the election. Of course, there's fraud in every election, but there isn't sufficient fraud. And there isn't. There's one more lawsuit left in Wisconsin. It's not got a shot either. And people were upset with that. But at the same time, he noted that in October, he named John Durham special counsel in the Russia investigation. And every nominee to the Biden Justice Department will be asked to take a pledge, a solemn oath, of non-interference and indeed support of Durham in the Russia investigation. Doesn't mean that the more indictments are coming. There's only been one indictment thus far, but it does mean we'll get to the bottom of the Comey, McCabe, and the intelligence community, if any, participation in that fiasco and attempted coup that crippled the Trump administration for 2.5 years with the Mueller investigation. We will get to the bottom of that if they leave John Durham alone. John Durham was not made special counsel, as Andy and I talk about, for the Hunter Biden allegations. And it wouldn't be bad for the AG to move there if indeed there's something there. But again, it's pretty early, as until January 21st or January 20th to name someone and set it up. The earlier the better, because then they can hire the lawyer and get the offices and staff up and not be starved in ways small and large and in ways for which there is accountability. Karl Rove said this to Bill Hemmer yesterday about what John Durham will do on the Russia probe, cut number 8.
Well, we can guarantee that this Durham investigation will continue unless and until Joe Biden's administration decides it wants to have a gigantic political kerfluffle by firing him. I think this guarantees that Durham, who's a career prosecutor, he's not a Republican, not a Democrat, career prosecutor, was made U.S. attorney by George W. Bush for the state of Connecticut and turned around and indicted and sent to jail the Republican governor of Connecticut, who was a close personal friend of President Bush's. So he's a tough character. He's going to do what he thinks is right. This appointment gives him the authority to continue beyond the end of the Trump administration. The only way I think they can end this is for the new administration to basically fire him, and I think there'd be political heck to pay if they tried to do that.
That's gently put. It will not happen. Durham will finish, and he will not, by the way, issue a Comey-like idiot report that says, boy, we almost indicted Hillary Clinton. That's not what prosecutors should do. Dick Hauser, if you're listening, you taught me well. Prosecutors should put up or shut up, indict or go away, close the file or open a case. They should not do press conferences. And that's where everything went wrong in this country in 2016. I think it went wrong because they should have indicted Hillary. It was obvious that they should have indicted the former Secretary of State for the server, and it would have been a slap on the wrist, but it would have made sure that we never see that again, and who knows what we're going to see. And then he should not have reopened the investigation. Comey is responsible for the politics of the last 5 years, and he sits there and tweets out pictures of himself walking in the woods. It's just unbelievable. Here's something that isn't unbelievable. 2.7 million children have mother or father in prison, and they will not be there for Christmas, which is why Angel Tree exists as a ministry of prison fellowship. And so many of you have stepped up to go to HughHewitt.com, and the Angel Tree banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. Please go there right now and be as generous as you can. Just HughHewitt.com, let it load. At the very top, you'll see a banner with a Christmas tree. $22 serves one of those 2.7 million children. And Angel Tree needs a lot more than that. They need tens of thousands of dollars to come in online because their patio support system is broken this year because of the virus. Churches aren't open. So they really, if you're a prison fellowship supporter, an Angel Tree supporter, just go online and do it this morning. Don't let those kids wake up on Christmas without what they've become used to because of the traditional Angel Tree outreach. Make sure mom and dad in prison connect with those kids through Angel Tree this year at HughHewitt.com. I'll be right back, America. Don't go anywhere.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Now, Now, I just was reading some other news as I was getting ready for the show today. Johnson & Johnson, which has not been mentioned in the equation. It's all been Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical giant, is going to seek FDA authorization for their vaccine. And their vaccine is a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. And it looks like it might be February or sooner. We are likely weeks away from sort of going in an entirely different direction and getting closer to putting this behind us. Remember when Brett Baer used to say we're one day closer to this end of coronavirus? We need it. We need it. I know there's lots of arguing and anger and frustration over the election. There should be. We knew all along, all of us knew that when you're encouraging millions and millions of people to mail in ballots because of COVID, that there was a real strong potential for, I don't know, the 27 toss-up races to all be won by Republicans.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are in some sort of social gathering. And he's put out a statement saying, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. We're all gonna do better.
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated.
And he started counting them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe he didn't realize that he had exceeded the number. First, he sends his children to in-person private school while attacking school choice and keeping public schools closed throughout California. Now he attends a private gathering while telling Californians to do otherwise.
Got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach.
Sacramento Bee editorial board, quote, if Newsom can't get his head into the game, perhaps he should make the governor thing a one-term affair and leave the job open for someone with a desire to lead, end of quote. You know, he told you not to have a gathering of more than 10 people. He exceeded that, but spiritually he didn't exceed it. He may have exceeded it physically.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment. Yesterday, the governor of California imposed a month-long 10 p.m. curfew for nearly everybody in the most populous state in America, California. And And I just take a lot of comfort in knowing that the Trump administration delivered essentially a vaccine that in normal times would have taken 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager.
Oh, you broke it! Welcome back, America. You broke it.
I gave you the refrain that you think exists.
No, it's what I wanted was the God bless you. The more you give, the more you get, and I'll tell you why.
You wanted the sales stuff.
Go away. I wanted God bless you. Because the more you give, the more you get is what I'm kind of inspired this morning, as I've told the audience earlier, if you're just tuning in. Last night, the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I were just honored to be able to host Commissioners Ken and Jolene Hodder, and they are with the Salvation Army, and they have been their entire, almost their entire adult lives. Ken really led a wayward youth. Ken went to Harvard, and then Ken went to Harvard Law School, and they were resident assistants in Mather House when he was in law school. So they both, they somehow escaped being sheep-dipped in Harvard, and Ken went off to big firm LA land, as many of you wayward people did who are listening, and did the 2,000 billable hours a year for a few years, and they gave him a big bonus check, and he just said, that's just not enough. And they'd grown up in Salvationist homes, and he went home and told his wonderful wife, Jolene, who was a buyer for a big brand, honey, this just isn't enough. I think we should become Salvationist officers. And so I spent good 3 hours with them last night, as did the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt, learning about what that means. That is a lifetime commitment. The only parallel to which I know is that of a Roman Catholic priest, brother, or nun, when they take their vows. The Salvationists take vows, and then they go out and they don't get a salary, they get an allowance. They don't get a car, they get a car that belongs to the Army. They don't get a house, they get a house that belongs to the Army, and they live according to wherever they are sent. And there are 5,400 Salvationist officers in the United States and 1,000 more employees and 3 million volunteers, and you see them ringing the bell. But it's just humbling, right? I am not impressed with billionaires, and I know a few. And I am not impressed with presidents, and I know a few. And I know a few actors like Matthew McConaughey, and I know a few people who are both actors and politicians like Arnold. And I'll be playing the interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger tomorrow. But I am awestruck by people like Ken and Jolene Hodder, as is Fetching Mrs. Hewitt. We were doing the dishes briefly after they left and just said, we often say we have no problems because we watch things like Hillbilly Elegy and we see a family in the throes of addiction, or people lose loved ones at a young age, or the military veterans year on the Semper Fi Fund, or the children whose mom and dad are in jail and that we serve through Angel Tree. We really have no problems. Our jobs are this. I mean, I've got Dwayne, and that's a burden. But I really have no problems. I've got burdens. Ben and Harley and Adam and I, the burdens are not problems. I was writing my friend Archbishop Chaput this morning. I said, there just isn't any remote level of sacrifice. When people get in awe, because I know presidents, or I've met Mark Zuckerberg, or I've got friends with leadership capacity in industry, et cetera, none of it compares to the average Salvationist officer out there who has made a lifetime commitment. And you know what they do? They do a kind of a Mormon thing. When the Mormons are young, the Latter-day Saints are young, and they agree to accept a mission, they go through a ceremony, they figure out, oh, you're going to Peru, or you're going to Swaziland, or you're off to Japan with you, or you're going to South Central Los Angeles, or we're sending you to Kansas. That last one's tough. Secretary Pompeo, if you're listening. And yes, they sacrificed for 2 years a lot. And then they can be a long time into their career, and the phone will ring, and it'll be Salt Lake City, and you're going to Peru, and see you later. And they live their lives expecting a call. And when they got a call to the 70 or to the Quorum of the 12 or to the first presidency, they up and moved to Salt Lake City. They live lives of service, absolutely, and they tithe and they did that. But there is nothing in the world like the commitment of a Catholic religious or a Salvationist officer, because they agree to be moved. They agree to go where they are sent. And so I was talking with Ken and Jolene last night. They got a call from their commissioner back when they were living in Portland. I'm sure this story is public, so otherwise I wouldn't tell it. And they were being sent to Kenya. How'd you like to get that phone call? Hey, how's Portland? Great. You're going to Kenya. And they did. And we talked about, military families, military officers make the same, military non-career officers, non-commissioned officer, military ranks who live their entire life, do their 20 years. They make a commitment, 30 years. They make a commitment. The Salvationists make a lifetime commitment till they're 65. And the religious and the Catholic priesthood and brotherhood and nuns make lifetime commitments. And other than that, I don't know. The rest of us are basically living in daisies. Doesn't mean we have easy lives. Some of us all have a Dwayne, but I'm just amazed by that. Just amazed by that. Now I want to open up the phones, 1-800-520-1234. If you agree with me, by the way, and if you're a billionaire and you're listening, just give money to the Salvation Army. Just go to rescuechristmas.org and write them $1 billion check. Jeff Bezos, if you're listening, because the needs that are put on the Army are 155% of what they were last year. I was watching Hillbilly Elegy, and the only problem I have, I know the movie has sparked a lot of PC controversy because it presents the problems of Anglo-America, the fentanyl problem, the addiction problem, and the PC people, the social justice warriors don't like Ron Howard's movie. I liked it a lot, but I like J.D. Vance. I liked the book. The only thing I didn't find real is that they didn't know what to do with Mom when Mom got addicted to heroin and was being discharged. And I said to Ken Hodder last night, now, of course you would take him to the Salvation Army. If there's no bed at a rehab facility, you go to the Army. The Army takes in everybody. And that's true. So if you're a billionaire and you want to actually change lives, a lot of you want to start foundations, good for you. LeBron wants to start a school, good for you. I have two suggestions for you. Catholic schools and the Salvation Army. They already have the infrastructure. All they need is money. That's all. That's it. The Salvation Army and Catholic schools, they've got the infrastructure the country needs. They just need money. You don't get your name on the building. Your reward is in heaven, but that's the easiest thing to do. Now, I want to talk about fraud. Some of you are upset that I don't talk a lot about fraud. That's because I do not believe it existed in sufficient amount to change the result in any state. There's always election fraud. I wrote the book about it, literally. If it's not close, they cannot cheat. You can still get it. It documents the long, deep genetic code in the Democratic Party to cheat. And it goes back to the Pendergast machine and the Daley machine and Tammany Hall, and it's deep and it's enduring and it's there. It's in the genetic code of the Democratic Party to cheat. But that's okay. If it's not close, they can't cheat. But I am aware of fraud. I hate ballot harvesting. It's not fraud, by the way. It's legal in some states like California. And you just got to get better. You got to up your game. And we did up our game because we picked up 15 to 17 seats in the House. And we're going to hold the Senate in Georgia because David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler are going to win. And President Trump was within 43,000 votes of winning in 3 states, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia. If you want to be mad at the pollsters. Bad information leads to bad decisions. And when ABC Washington Post says that Donald Trump is behind by 17 points in Wisconsin, it's a voter suppression poll. You know how the left loves to talk about voter suppression? The biggest voter suppression in 2020 was the polling. Absolutely fraudulent. But I know some of you want to yell at me, and so I always like to take advantage of this opportunity to let you yell at me that I'm not doing enough on fraud. So let's see if Rudy in Fort Mill, South Carolina is ready to talk to me. Rudy? Hey, Rudy's up. Hey, Rudy, go ahead. Hey, Rudy, good morning.
How are you?
I'm great.
Great. I'm curious to know why you don't report more on Rudy Giuliani and misconduct that is being shown.
Well, Rudy Giuliano is actually Rudy Giuliani, and he's an old friend of mine back to Department of Justice days, and I follow what he says very closely. But I don't repeat allegations because we're long past the allegation. I did early on. The process goes allegation, evidence, argument, rulings, judgment, appeal. 6-step process. We've been at allegations and a tiny bit of evidence for a month. By this point, Rudy's got to have more for me to take him seriously because they've had a month. And if you haven't in a month been able to come up with enough evidence to move to a complaint that is not dismissed, you haven't got a case. Thank you, Rudy. Okay. Mike in Maryland. Hey, Mike, you're on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Hey, Mike. Hello, Mike.
Yeah, hi. Hi.
Hey,
Hugh?
good morning. Yep, you're on.
Yeah, good morning, Hugh. Yeah, Hugh, I was, now that we're talking on that topic, we could switch over to that. There's plenty of people that came out and we have witnesses and there's all kinds of proof. And not only that, let's go with logical thinking.
No, stop. No, Mike, logical thinking does not mean anything in a court of American law. Logical thinking does not mean a thing. In a court of law, you have allegations followed by evidence, followed by argument, followed by judgment, followed by appeal. And
people.
No, what you've got is a little tiny bit of evidence. I don't deny that. It's absolutely true.
Thousands of witnesses.
It does not equal a dispositive impact on the election. You've got to show.
For 4 years with the Russian collusion.
Oh, Mike, you just
Donald Trump. Where was their evidence?
Mike, that's why I'm very glad John Durham got appointed special counsel because that is a crime. But that does not impact.
Bill Barr, Hugh?
Bill Barr yesterday appointed John Durham as.
Nothing.
Go ahead, you yell. I'll let you yell.
Hugh. Bill Barr came out and said that there's not a sign of any corruption whatsoever, zero. He hasn't done anything. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Why don't you people realize that all these Republicans are not on our side, Hugh? We need a whole new party. They're traitors, just like the Democrats, Hugh.
Well, this is what this segment is for, and I appreciate the call, Mike. Thank you. Terry in Florida. Hi, Terry.
Hey, Hugh. You just said that you know that it's in the code and you wrote the book on it. But the thing is if nobody is ever held accountable for those that are cheating and doing it, it's not going to sway people from continuously doing it. And all these people that have been testifying in all these states during those hearings, it's like they're ignoring them and they're not taking them seriously. People need to be held accountable.
Well, I agree with that. And if there's enough evidence to present to a prosecutor, I want everyone prosecuted. Bill Barr said yesterday, and I trust Bill Barr. I do. He's a remarkable lawyer. He is a brain, and he is a committed rule of law conservative. They ought to present it to the Department of Justice, and they ought to be prosecuted. Here's the reality. There is insufficient evidence to charge anyone with a crime. There is testimony that alleges a lot. But testimony has to be converted to evidence, and evidence has to be converted to a coherent argument, not a conclusory one. And that argument then has to be presented to a court for the purposes of seeking rulings on its admissibility and its persuasiveness and a judgment as to the irregularity of the election, followed by an appeal. We got to the appeal phase in the Third Circuit, and a Trump judge, Mr. Bilbis, threw it out. That's just the reality. I got to go to break, but Terry, thank you for the call. ReliefFactor.com. You might need it because you're punching the radio right now and you hurt your hand, and this will help support the temporary relief of minor aches and pains. But I just want to level with you. That's the reality. ReliefFactor.com, the reality of it is it assists in the temporary support of the minor aches and pains being relieved that you get from exercise or aging. And you're definitely getting older, and you ought to be out doing more, going farther, working out every day. No matter what the weather is, the challenges in front of you to stay in shape during the shutdown when you can't go to the gym, and ReliefFactor.com will help you do that. A few more calls when we come back, America. 1-800-520-1234 connects you to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge
So
Samuel
the
Alito
nominee in
recently made a
24 is
startling
going to be
point.
the first
Religious
person
liberty is in danger
to
of
talk to
becoming a
Trump and
second-class
convince
right.
him
Alito
that
said
he's
as
more
much to the
powerful to be a
Federalist Society.
kingmaker
Just
and
as
get
the
his
COVID
endorsement.
restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts,
Pompeo,
litigation
'cause he was
about
the most
those
loyal.
restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights.
Yep.
This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty.
Although DeSantis is going to make that
say
play
this,
too.
But in certain quarters, religious liberty is
he's
fast
yeah,
becoming a
right. I mean, he's very well positioned to be able to pull
Alito
this
argued that
off.
not
He
only
could be
religious
Trump
liberty,
without
but
the
free speech
abrasiveness.
is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are in some sort of social gathering. And he's put out a statement saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. We're all gonna do better."
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated.
And he started counting them: 1, 2, 3, 4. And maybe he didn't realize that he had exceeded the number. First, he sends his children to in-person private school while attacking school choice and keeping public schools closed throughout California. Now he attends a private gathering while telling Californians to do otherwise.
Got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach.
Sacramento Bee editorial board, quote, "If Newsom can't get his head into the game, perhaps he should make the governor thing a one-term affair and leave the job open for someone with a desire to lead," end of quote. You know, he told you not to have a gathering of more than 10 people. He exceeded that, but spiritually he didn't exceed it. He may have exceeded it physically.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I'm telling you, God bless you, America. They'll find it by tomorrow, I'm sure. Look, we got the lightning round of complaints. 30 seconds only. Maggie, Pittsburgh, you're on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Go.
Hey, my blood pressure is pretty high right now, Hugh. We are 71 million. We're not rolling over. We are not rolling over. That election was stolen. I know a guy whose father's a sheriff was told to bring a big bag of ballots to Allegheny County. This is wrong, and we will get it, and I think maybe Pennsylvania has a chance of maybe getting the electorate changed. We know Trump won Pennsylvania. And as far as these people...
Okay, Maggie, your 30 seconds up. Good. Thank you. Steve in Florida. 30 seconds, Steve. I'm doing the lightning round because a lot of people want to complain about the election. Go ahead.
As persnickety as you are, why aren't you calling Biden the president-designate? He will not be the president-elect until after the electors meet.
That's not actually true. It is tradition that once in the United States someone has obviously won the election, you refer to him as president-elect, and I go with tradition.
Not in 2000 and not in 16. The media spent a whole bunch of time explaining that Bush and Trump.
I disagree with you, but that's a disagreement. You can object to calling him president-elect. I do, but that's not a fraud call. You got 15 seconds left.
Well, thanks for taking my call.
All right, thank you. Kevin in Tampa, Florida. How are you, Kevin?
Hey, Merry Christmas, America. Merry Christmas. Mr. Hewitt, I appreciate that you're a member of mainstream media, but you yourself have participated in voter suppression by saying a vote for Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen for president is a wasted vote. You said it over and over again.
I've actually, Kevin, stop for a second. I have never, before this moment, heard the name Joe Jorgensen, much less pronounced it.
I'm going to find the clip and
go ahead, Kevin. Send it to me. I will play it tomorrow if you can find it. Yeah.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
No, Kevin, that's okay. God bless you. I have never, ever. If you think I have said many times, never vote for a libertarian. They are the losertarian party, to quote my friend Michael Medved. It's a wasted vote. It cost us Georgia. We have to do the whole runoff because of the crazy libertarians. They're never going to win election. They never have won an election. They are electoral losers and wonderful people. Tom in Pittsburgh. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, Hugh. Trump is going after big tech. So, I think right now what he ought to do is also dump Barr, dump Durham, and put a temporary attorney general in with him, I think his name was. And, just because I think Biden's going to put all of the deep state people back in there. So, because honestly, Barr's done nothing. Durham, I don't know. I think he's just using this position as a chance to travel the world.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Dale in Sarasota, Florida. Complaint time. Go ahead, Dale.
One quick question. You talked about indictment and having enough evidence to proceed through the 6 steps. Why didn't we indict Hillary Clinton? The evidence was...
Oh, no, look, you got no argument from me there. I think I said earlier in the show, the entire fiasco of the last 5 years politically begins with James Comey's decision not to indict the Secretary of State for what was obviously an indictable offense. We're in agreement. That's not an argument. I appreciate the call. Let's stay in Pittsburgh because it's probably a Steelers fan, and we're going to beat the Steelers in Cleveland in a couple of weeks. It's going to ruin their perfect season. It's going to make me very happy. Hello, Gregory.
Hi, Hugh. I don't know if you've commented on what Sidney Powell said during the news conference about a week ago. She's a respected attorney. I'm surprised that her of the...
Why do you think the president fired her?
Oh, well, maybe that's a good reason.
There you go. Harry in Florida. That's why I live to serve. Harry, how are you, Harry?
Living the dream. Well, I hate to disagree, but I think you're wrong about the election fraud. There's a lot of evidence out there that proves it's right. It's unfortunate that this is our last chance for democracy to survive. This is not overthrown. The country's going to be a mess. But I think you're definitely wrong, and I have a sneaky feeling you're going to be eating some crow soon.
I'm going to be what?
You're going to be eating crow in this.
You know what? If I eat crow on this, I'd be the happiest man in the world. I really would. I am so disappointed. I have spoken. I will go this far. I won't tell you what we talked about. I have spoken to the president, and I told him I am so deeply disappointed because what he did for the country on the military and the judges was enough to reelect him. That and Operation Warp Speed is a miracle of science and logistics that he engineered. He does not get the credit. He is routinely ridiculed. He is assaulted by the left, and he did not get it was voter suppression polling from start to finish. But I don't think there was fraud in the election. I think he lost because of the media and because of Russia, and because of the hoax. I believe that is at the root here, but not fraud. That's where I separate. But yeah, I hope I eat crow. I'm not going to. And I hope Ben finds the song by tomorrow. But Adam will be back tomorrow, and they put the... Would you guys clean up the studio, too? Quite the Christmas party last night. Led to dysfunction this morning on the music department. But other than that, you can go find my interview with Andrew McCarthy at my YouTube channel, which you ought to be signed up for today, because that Andrew McCarthy interview will tell you everything you need to know about John Durham and the special counsel proceedings. It's posted at the Hugh Hewitt YouTube channel. Be back tomorrow.